Okay, so can everyone hear me clearly? Audio, video coming through? Great. So welcome to our community gathering. The title of our event today is The Ultimate Spirituality, Zen in Community. I had some inspiration earlier today, kind of questioning and thinking about this event, this gathering, and what we will focus on or talk about, what we will practice with. And the idea came up very strongly for me about why, why are we here and why are we concerned with Buddhism rather than some other spirituality, right? Some other tradition or something to do with chakras or deity worship, or many of us are Western already, so we don't have a background of spirituality necessarily, and yet we make the choice to commit ourselves and to kind of be involved with meditation and the Buddhist teachings and the Zen teachings. So why in particular is that? What makes Zen special? What makes us come together here? And for me, I want the real thing. I want the teaching and the experience, the teacher, the philosophy that is closest to the source, the ultimate. I don't want just the regular old spirituality. I want the ultimate spirituality. And maybe this is something connected to like growing up as an American and having many materialistic things put in front of me as being accessible and maybe just out of reach, but kind of possible to get, possible to experience. So I have this very high ideal about what I want and how things should be. So for me, this spirituality or this religion or this tradition has to be something that is right in my face. I don't like levels. I don't want to jump through hoops. I don't want to step on stairs to get to some particular place. I want that particular place that the spirituality is pointing to or that the enlightenment is about to be right here and right now. If it's not right here and if it's not right now, what good is it? What use is it? If I can't use it every time, all the time, anytime, regardless of the conditions, regardless of the circumstances, then I probably need to let it go. Some people online are very focused because we are a mainly online community, and we could even say we are a Zen community. because I'm very informed by Zen. I use a lot of the Zen teachings and texts, and all of the teachers that I really value are definitely Zen style teachers. So we are a Zen community, but some Zen communities online are almost hyper fixated on the absolute. So the absolute Zen, that everything you say is nothing, and that you just need to listen to the teachings of the ancient masters. And there's nothing for us to talk about. Your problem, your suffering, your worry, your sickness is just the sickness of being not getting it, right? And that the only way for you to solve that or work with that is by getting it, by understanding it. So you better study scriptures, or you better listen to the ultimate Zen teachings, and then you either get it or you don't, and you'll have to deal with that. And then a lot of communities, maybe Buddhist communities, are emphasizing the relative. So in that case, the absolute is out of reach. The absolute, or the enlightenment, or the deeper truth, the deeper point, is something you have to kind of work up to. You've got to pass through these certain stages. You've got to develop yourself, and then you'll be able to get it. Right? Then we can talk about that perspective. But here, I am concerned with, and I hope that we can try to practice in a way that is the middle way. So not just Zen, but Zen Buddhism. Not just the ultimate truth or the ultimate reality that is permeating everything all the time, but also dana, sila, samadhi, panya. Generosity, virtue, meditation, wisdom. And how do we incorporate these into our lives? How do we exercise, right? Because we're all holding on to things. I wake up, I'm holding on to something somehow, right? Or I pick up a cup and I'm holding on to it. So even drinking coffee, you're holding on to something. So how do we exercise this capacity to hold on to something? We're holding on to something, and we can give it away, period. Not about the transaction, not about me, not about my life, not about that person or that place or that situation or their lives, not about the interpersonal right or wrong or higher or lower, nothing. Just I'm holding on to something, I give it away. To let go, I think, sounds too passive. It's really to offer out. It's to give out. It's to give away. It's a very active process. And it's natural, but it's also active. It's not something that happens passively. Generosity, right? It's not, we can't be passively generous. And from that capacity to be generous, I think the practice of just being generous and just doing the action of generosity makes it clear that I can have a thought, I can have an idea, I can have a preference, I can have a possession, I can have an experience that I'm involved with, that I believe in, that's important, that's whatever, and I can give it away. Give it out, offer it out. I don't need to believe in it, I don't need to fixate on it, I don't need to drag it around with me, I don't need to add on all these extra layers about it. I can just give it away, and that's not just authentic, but it's also skillful. And from that way that is open to me, there's space. There is space for me to be involved with, to take care of, to be mindful of my mental, physical, and verbal actions. And from that awareness, I can notice, I can experience that, oh, this action on a very subtle level causes me to feel stressed or causes someone else to feel stressed. This action makes me feel tired or confused. This action or this lack of action puts me in a situation that's dangerous or unskillful, or may be prone to depression or tiredness or holding up hindrances, right? So in Buddhism we have 5 hindrances, which I think are very, very nice. So 5 hindrances to our development, to our practice, right? To walking on the path: sensual desire, ill will, sloth and torpor, which means like laziness, restlessness and remorse. So like having a bunch of energy to do things, but not really doing anything, and maybe being like self-dwelling or ruminating, right? And then skeptical doubt. So it's paranoia, right? We in America, I think we value, from a Western perspective, any modern perspective, we value being skeptical. Like, oh, is this real, or is this good or bad, or what's this all about? But skepticism can also be, a lot of times, be this kind of paranoid mind. Don't be paranoid, just be aware, right? Listen deeply, see for yourself. What's there to be skeptical about? In terms of your mental, physical, and verbal actions, and using the environment to conduct those actions skillfully, I think we need to be more mindful rather than paranoid. We need to be more respectful of our curiosity rather than judgmental about what we're looking at or towards or interested in. So these 5 hindrances are barriers where we may spend our whole life just kind of being hindered or being behind this barrier, being stuck in our sensual desire, right? It's like when you are very hungry and you're looking at, what am I going to order? What am I going to eat? There's kind of a barrier there. You're kind of stuck in, you can be stuck in that state for quite a while, right? In sensual desire. It can, not just food, but it could be other things as well. Ill will, right? We get a strong negative feeling about someone, and now we're stuck in that. We're blocked in that. We're locked in that. Sloth and torpor, tiredness, laziness, right? It's a blockage. We might not even be sleeping, but we're just lazy. What to do? Restlessness, antsiness, right? We're stuck in that, or this skepticism, this paranoia. But we can't recognize that these are hindrances unless we can be aware. And we can't be aware unless we can detach from our desire. And so generosity is our most accessible avenue for detaching from our desire, giving something up that we grasp onto, that we hold onto. And it's not just positive things, right? It's not just our money, or like my time's valuable, so giving it away. But it's also giving away our anxiety, giving away our depression, giving away our fear, giving away our self-fixated involvement, giving away our unhelpful beliefs, But it's actually more difficult to give away those negative things than it is to give away those positive things somehow. Because those possessions are things that you control and are valuable to you, whereas those negative things are kind of like stuff that you're controlled by. So there's even a tighter grasping around it. We're even more shy to give away our possessions or our home or our life that we've been living up to now, right? Our status, our familiar way of living. And to the degree that you have a grasping onto this particular way of living or this particular possession or this particular thing, that you will get the corresponding benefit from giving it away, from detaching from it, from abandoning it, from giving it out. So that if we look at the 5 precepts, go back to practical Buddhism and the practical path, which is, the ultimate is really interesting and essential, and it is the essence. This is it. No matter what way you go, no matter who you are, where you are, what you've done, what you're doing, what you will do, none of that matters. This is it. Like a stone sinking to the bottom of the ocean. It just is. There's nothing to stop it. The ocean is wide open. The mind is a clear blue sky. The clouds are just clouds. They're temporary. This body is just this body. It's temporary. So that's very true. But there's also this practical Buddhism, this practical approach. So in that, we exercise the capacity to be generous. Like, yes, I can let go of something. I can give away something. I can detach from something. And there is more opportunity for me to self-direct or no self-direct. So now we have to bring in some kind of structure, some kind of scaffolding, some way of working with this habit energy that we have, some way of working with this cultural conditions we find ourselves in, some way of working with the difficult home life, the difficult family life, the traumas that we've dealt with, all this, we need a structure to support us to really continuously do this work. So one of the structures that we have in Buddhism is the notion of virtue and the practice of following 5 precepts. So don't kill or respect all life. We need to look at what we're consuming regularly. Don't steal or respect the properties of others. Don't lie or speak harshly. Don't even chit-chat. Be very mindful. Be very careful with your speech. Don't commit sexual misconduct. And don't take drugs or intoxicants. So to the degree that you have a debate point or you have an argument point or you have a defending point about not following one of these precepts, that is the corresponding amount of benefit that you're going to get by following it, right? To the degree that you are attached to drinking wine or drinking alcohol, you're going to get the corresponding detachment by not doing it anymore, right? To the degree that it's something that controls you and drains you, you're going to get the corresponding freedom and rejuvenation from not doing it anymore. Just cause and effect, the natural law. What you do, you get back. If you can do the act of giving away what you are holding on to, if you can do the act of detaching from what you are attached to, then you will get back freedom from that attachment, freedom from that action, freedom from that substance, that habit, that aspect of mind. Now we can, when we start to live in that way and we start to prioritize these ways of being, right? These ways of mindful living, these ways of respectful, considerate, meaningful living, right? Now we can practice meditation. We can be in community. We can ask questions that are not just practical, but actionable, right? We can bring forth our real case or our real situation that we're in, rather than just this constant habit energy and this constant grasping that we're, kind of dragging around with us. To live a life that is fundamentally focused on doing actions of generosity and being good. Focused on being good and doing good. And the more we bring our sincerity, the more we bring our mindfulness, our attention to these practices, okay, the more that they open and they deepen, right? So it's not the 10 Commandments from God in Buddhism. These are the 5 encouragements or the 5 supporting factors for mindful living in these 5 precepts. And there's a lot of different lists like this that we can use, but we have to fuel that intentionality. We have to fuel that inspiration, that vibrancy, that brightness about being on this path and practicing and taking responsibility. Actually, it's a joy to take responsibility. It's a joy to wake up and meditate, or it's a joy to be generous. It's a joy to show up with a good intention. But we have certain karma, we have certain causing conditions that we find ourselves in, so we need to start working in the way that is most sustainable and most actionable for us, wherever we are. So if you're at a meditation retreat, or if you're living at a temple, a certain Buddhist temple, something like that, you might be able to meditate every day, and that can be your main focus of being on the path, right? And studying very deep teachings and thinking about the ultimate truth all day. If you're in a monastery, a Buddhist temple, I guess you'll be able to do that. But in your working life, in your social life, in your normal life, which is also a lot of monks are also in a, starting out, the beginner's mind, right? We're not all experts. I've been practicing Buddhism and meditation for 10 years. I've been a monk for 5 years, and I'm hopefully, fingers crossed, I'm just getting started. And these notions of generosity and these notions of virtue are all the more interesting and valuable and rich to practice with and to bring into my life. And so, if we want to really get it, if we really want to touch the ultimate truth in Buddhism, we need to detach from the ultimate truth in Buddhism. We need to open to a normal, ordinary life that is profoundly interesting and rich and not at all vague. To see seeing. I think our human brains are evolutionarily structured. So certain faculties that we have or capacities that we have are very much related to what is evolutionary beneficial for the continuation of a species. One interesting point I find very curious is that we have a limited capacity to discern scope, right? So we can determine or kind of generally understand the difference between an ant and a human being, and then maybe a human being and a skyscraper, and maybe a skyscraper and a mountain. But if we start to look at the difference between an ant and the planet Earth, it's not quite clear what we're talking about anymore, right? And then the difference between the Earth and the sun, it's not quite clear, right? And then an ant and the sun, and these are just small things in the scope of the universe, right? So I also think this goes in line with points of value, right? Points of value in our lives. So if I were to ask some people in this group, what is most valuable to you? Or if I were to ask the general public, to get the point more directly across, what is most valuable to you? They might say, my family. Or they might say, if they're being very practical, my job or my car, right? My way of conveyance, my way of getting to work, my bank account, my partner. My belief system, my capacity to think. But many people wouldn't say my eyes and the corresponding faculty of seeing, my ears and the corresponding faculty of hearing. Many people wouldn't say my breathing. So our eyes and our seeing is so valuable, so poignant, so much in our face that we don't notice it. Our breathing is so essential, so profound, so rich, such a powerful point of value, so essential that we disregard it. So to practice natural meditation, to practice real meditation, we're starting to tap into the nature of value in our present moment experiencing that does not relate to thought. To hold something so valuable in your arms, in your hands, it's so valuable, it's so profound that you can't even begin to touch the depths of it. And yet it's right there with you. Our breathing is just like this. We get to this point by knowing through experience and through practice that we have a practical and actionable experience, practice of, and capacity to give away what we grasp onto. So you have a thought, doesn't matter, you give it away. The grasping is the reminder to abandon, to let go, to detach. And then all of this kind of friction or complicatedness or all of this karma that we begin to face when we become a meditator, when we really start practicing Buddhism, we're going upstream. We're not just going, we're like a salmon where we turn and we start going upstream. We're still in the stream, but now we've turned the mind around. We're going upstream. We're going towards the flow, the source of the flow. When you do that, you've got all this karma coming in your face. You've got all this cause and effect that you're aware of. Things of the past are coming up. Things of the future are coming up. People, places, sensations in the body that are pleasant or unpleasant or neutral or boring. So all this starts to happen once we turn our face towards the stream. When we start facing the mind. So to face that, we need the aptitude, we need the skillfulness of virtue. Facing karma, facing that ancient twisted karma with your virtue, with your sincerity, with your wholeheartedness to be good, to do good, to endure, to take care. You'll need it. You will need it. Many people that I've spoken with, it's almost like their idea is to become a sprinter or a marathon runner with meditation, with concentration. Well, you'll get to a point with that where things will start to get very unsettling, where you'll be so concentrated, so in the moment, that the vulnerability and the rawness and the authenticity of this mind and body will be too much to face, to be with. And at that time, there can be a lot of side effects. It can be very unstable, be a lot of suffering. So we need our virtue, we need our wholeheartedness, we need our stability of trust in goodness, trust in generosity, trust in our capacity to take care. And we build that not through belief, but through practice. If we need to believe in anything, we can believe in not believing. Just doing. And what should we just do? We should do that which is good, that which is helpful, that which is skillful. And not just for ourselves. We need to learn how to use each other, to use the others. For what? For mindfulness, for doing good deeds, not just for developing our spiritual understanding, but deepening our spiritual understanding. And deepening our spiritual understanding is essentially to understand not understanding, to grasp not grasping, to know the self of no self, to know the place of no place, to know the time of no time. Allow the heart to beat without interfering with it. Allow the breath to breathe without needing to control or not to control it. Listen to the heart beating. Listen to the breath breathing. There's a wisdom there. There's not so much wisdom in pleasurable, unpleasurable, and neutral. This feels good, so what? This feels bad, so what? This feels neutral or boring, so what? Penetrate. Be with, breathe with, enter into. Not about feeling good, but listening, opening. And we can practice like this not just for ourselves, we can practice like this for our Sangha, for our loved ones, for the society, for the community, for the people that are around us. When those moments of opening, when those moments of space come naturally, don't try to fill it in. Don't try to add anything to it. Don't try to understand it. Just experience. When that anxiety comes up, when that strong feeling or memory comes up, don't try to understand it. Don't try to fix it. Breathe with it. Enter it. Penetrate it. Face it. Offer the freedom to the present moment experiencing. Offer the presence to whatever arises in the body and mind. This kind of deep listening is also a generosity. Offer out the listening. Sometimes a feeling or experience comes up and we need to use a lot of energy, a lot of heart, a lot of mindfulness to embrace it and to face it. So it's not a matter of passivity. It's just like compassion is not a matter of passivity. Generosity is not about submission. When those strong experiences come up, mental or physical, it is a precious opportunity. When a barrier arises, penetrate it. Dare to be with it. Dare to breathe with it. Dare to hold it. The three jewels, the three precious gems of Buddhism, the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. You have the capacity to wake up. You have the capacity to be free. I have a certain karma where I've had many dreams or many nightmares in my past where I'm trapped. I'm trapped in a situation. I'm trapped in a particular version of myself. Maybe I'm literally in a prison, but I'm trapped in some way. You have the capacity to wake up. You have the capacity not just to be more relaxed in your life or for, to make more money or for things to kind of work out. The capacity exists within you to be free, to realize the deathless, to realize that which existed before humanity came out of the ocean, that will exist 1,000,000 years from now, to wake up from the dream of grasping and aversion. The Buddha. Secondly, there are teachings that are explicitly for the purpose of helping you to wake up. There are methods, guidances, ways of practice, ways of explanation, direct encouragements to guide you and support you in your moment by moment, daily, weekly, monthly life to wake up, to end suffering, to heal from suffering. These teachings are there. They are available. They are accessible. If you don't know where to find them, well, our community is here to help you. Finally, there are good people. There are real enlightened people. There are real monks and nuns. There are real, virtuous, meditative, wise people. There are others who are committed to following the path of dana, sila, samadhi, panya, being deeply generous, being deeply virtuous, being deeply meditative, and being deeply wise. And emphasizing this as the fundamental direction of their life. So you are not alone. There is a sangha. There is a community here. Remember these three jewels. Keep them nearby so that when you get caught in that addiction, when you get caught in that complicated mindset, when you go on a bender, when you lose your footing, mentally, physically, financially, know that you are a part of Buddhism. You are a part of this community. Now, real Buddhism is not Buddhism. The Buddha wasn't a Buddhist. But we don't need to tear down a house to live in it and know that it's temporary. Okay, at this time, does anyone have any questions or sharing experience? This is also a time to be generous, so don't be shy. Kay, do you have a question? Okay, someone in the chat says, so this is a bit of a hunch, but since today I got only 5 hours of sleep, I am thinking about whether sleep has any correlation to mindfulness or meditation in any way. It is like most things in life where sleep negatively impacts it. The main issue with sleeping is attachment to sleeping. The biggest problem people have is their attachment to sleeping, not about sleeping enough or sleeping too much. Because attachment with sleeping is going along with attachment to everything else that you're involved with in your life. So it's a very strong point to practice detachment, or to look at this notion of detachment. To step back from the emphasis that you give on doing something in a particular way or having a particular result in relationship to doing it. So rather just doing only, right? So if you're sleepy, go to sleep. If you didn't get enough sleep, but it's time to go to work, go to work. Or don't. But the rumination and the complicatedness about it, it tends to not be very helpful. If we are in the meditation retreat or at the meditation center, then we can even practice to sleep very little. And there are benefits that go along with that as well. So practicing, we have an encouragement in a general Buddhist encouragement for meditating when sick. So we consider when stuff is really not going your way, that's like an ideal time to meditate, because you can practice being mindful of uncomfortableness, being mindful of the unsatisfactoriness of the body and mind. So you naturally, sense of detachment will arise from that. And the same goes with the lack of sleep. But there are other positive qualities to lack of sleep as well. Maybe you can experience the ability you have to be mindful even though you're very sleepy. That mindfulness can be more profound or more clear than sleepiness, so that you're not attached or you're not controlled by sleepiness. Sleepiness is there, but it's not the most important thing. Go ahead, Rashim. Why don't you share something with us? If your microphone is at the ready. Yeah.
And a story that my teacher has told of when his teacher had given him orders during a certain retreat not to sleep for the entire retreat. And his story is that another lay student was being bothered by him doing a lot of work in the middle of the night because he was trying to keep himself awake. And asked him, "Why are you doing this? You're keeping me up." And he told him that, his teacher had given him that order, and this lay student decided to do it with him, or to do it as well anyway. And at the end of the retreat, my teacher had no particular profound experience from not sleeping for the entire retreat, but this lay student had, and came up to him and said, "Wow, that was wild, huh?" And I just love this story because it's, it very subtly points out how the things that we engage in get offered out to the universe. That, in this instance, you might look at this and say, my teacher's teacher gave him a mission, so to speak, that was really just for the sake of being passed on to this other person in their community.
Yeah, it's not all about you, right? And that's maybe something we don't connect enough with in modern society, because it's more possible now than ever to have like your own place to live as a young person, and to be kind of separated early on from your family group or village group. So we may miss out on that very deep understanding that it's not all about you, right? It's not all about me. And how that notion really opens things up. At first, it can be like a little bit of a whack on the head, but it really opens up the heart and the mind for how we live in community, and how we also can be receptive to the other practices that are going on. Right? So not that not, oh, that's disturbing me, this person isn't sleeping, or they're doing work at night and now's the time to sleep. but also someone coming along and saying, hey, what are you doing? I'll follow you along with that. I'll participate in that with you. So we can be more open, more flexible, more detached rather than reactive in these situations, because there's something to use there. There's something to make use of there, even if it isn't quickly apparent to us as an individual. Or like in this story, even that other person who was practicing that from the guidance of their teacher, it wasn't even about them. It bled out, or it was shared out to this other person who did get the real benefit from it.
This is correct. Hmm.
Anyone else for sharing or asking a question to me, or can pose it to the group as well? It can be a general question. A part of our practice when we really start practicing is like in that idea of swimming upstream or turning to face the stream. First and foremost, we're getting hit by the stream from the source in our face. So there's a natural coolness or freshness or newness, uncomfortableness that goes along with that, because we're used to kind of swimming downstream. So even though that we're covered by the flow, our face is usually pointing to some desire or some involvement, right? That's about someone or some place or some situation, and so we might just feel the flow from the source on the back of our ears. But once we turn upstream, once we turn the mind around and we start to emphasize generosity, regulating our physical and mental and verbal conduct and actions, and kind of this mindfulness to face life, right? Now we're being, the stream, the flow from the source is going right into our face. And what is the source? Ever new impermanent nature, moment by moment. Brightness, blessing, finishing, refreshing and restarting, beginning again. So we're not also, when we start to practice like this, you're not just going to be hit with the flow from the source or the flow of cause and effect, but you're also going to have these things that are in the flow, right? This chair that somebody flew in there from your ancestry or your past or your trauma or something. Now that's going to come and hit you in your face, right? And as we continue to practice like this, these deeper situations or blockages or objects or kind of contrivances, tangles that we have are also going to come and and hit us in our face. Now, at that time, there's two things that we can do. One is that we can continue our practice. We can continue going upstream, going towards the source, right? Our relationship with that which is free of relationship. Or we turn around and we kind of turn back, right? We say, okay, yeah, I practice with this mindfulness stuff, and I practice with being virtuous and generous and prioritizing that, but now I'm gonna go turn back around so this stuff isn't hitting me in the face anymore. But that stuff is still there. We're just not making use of it. So we have to be ready to make use of deeper stuff that comes up as well. And we need to be in a really supportive environment. And we need to have really good teachers and resources and community to support us as we're getting hit in the face with, this, that, and whatsoever. That chair, that box, that story, that relationship. So we keep practicing, we keep going, and we continuously can become more and more free. We can know about the truth for ourselves. It's kind of like in basketball. I don't know that we have many basketball players here, but I'm sure we know about basketball. You have to live in a certain way, and you have to act in a certain way, and you have to practice in a certain way to prepare yourself to receive that pass or to make that pass, right? To get the ball thrown to you. So it's not just that we're working with our own understanding to get our own experience and, kind of make things get to a certain point for ourselves, but we're also being ready to get that opportunity when it comes, to make use of that meditation retreat, to make use of that opportunity to help someone else, right? To make use of that opportunity to deepen, to connect, to pass the ball and to receive the ball. To fall head over heels, but in freedom, not in attachment. In wisdom, not in ignorance. Yeah, practice mindfulness when you do weight training. Practice mindfulness of weight training when you are sick or sleepless, but go slowly and emphasize the mindfulness more than the exercise. The exercise is the mindfulness. Okay, so let's finish here with sharing the merit. We can all bring our hands together and Everyone can unmute their mic as well, so we can hear each other a little bit. So everyone's invited to unmute their microphone and repeat after me.